One game, a dozen different names. The Far Eastern equivalent of tic-tac-toe, today on The Gaming Bench. Do-guti is a simple two-player abstract strategy game. To play, you only need a Do-guti board and two playing pieces for each player. You don't need a custom-made board like this. A drawing will do, and for centuries, players have played with nuts or seeds on boards scratched into the dirt. Rules are simple. The game begins with all pieces on the board. Pieces can move to any open spot connected by a line, but cannot jump other pieces. There are no captures. The goal is to blockade your opponent so that they can no longer move any of their pieces. It's important that pieces start in this configuration, with one player's pieces spanning the gap in the square. Otherwise, if you start like this, whoever goes first would win the game with a single move. And that's all there is to it. There is a variation where pieces start in hand and players take turns placing one piece at a time on the board. Note that if you play this way and manage to end the placement phase in this configuration, the starting player is prohibited from making this their first move, again, because that would immediately end the game. For such a simple game, Do-guti, or the local version of the same, was widely played across the Asian continent since at least the medieval period. My first exposure to this game was years ago at a Renaissance fair, where a merchant called the game Horseshoe. But the origin of the game is probably older than the 16th century and certainly wasn't European. It's hard to pin down dates because the game is so simple in design and play and existed in nearly every culture on the Asian continent. It was called Do-guti in what today is India and Pakistan. It's called Pong Hau K'i in China, Ou-moul-ko-no or Umul Gonu in Korea, and Sua Tok in Thailand. For what it's worth, Pong Hau K'i, the Chinese version, seems to be the most popular modern name, according to Google. The design of the board differs slightly from culture to culture, but all of them are functionally the same. 5 points connected by 5 lines. Typically this is drawn as a square with one side missing, but sometimes it is shown as a circle or a more exotic shape. I very much enjoyed the Pac-Man version. The meaning of the game's name differs across cultures. Do-guti, for example, translates to 2 pieces, referring to the number of pieces each player has. Some Chinese dialects translate to scissors game, because of the central crossed lines, I guess, or the crotch game, presumably referring to the fork in a tree's branch and not, However, many of the names of the game reference water, springs, or a well. Umul Gonu, a Korean version, translates to the river game. Apparently some people thought the shape of the game evoked the image of a stream busting forth from the ground and flowing in all directions. I guess I see it. The Malaysian name is Talaga Burak, meaning bad well. In Thailand, Sua Tok means tiger falls into the bucket, and a similar Cambodian name, Khlaa ʼandoung, means tiger falls into the well. All the falls into the water names make more sense when you look at their associated game boards. They all have a circle or a void indicating the water hazard. Once you have your opponent blocked, they have no movement available to them except to fall into the well. The historical record is sketchy for this game, no matter what you call it. There are no solid sources to confidently date its age, and I couldn't find any photos of actual artifacts or even game boards scratched into stone somewhere. In comparison, you can find 9 men's Morris boards everywhere in the medieval period, scratched into stone steps, benches, and the like. Part of that, I believe, is due to the simplicity of the game. Most cultures consider it a children's game because, like tic-tac-toe, once you understand it, the only way to win is if somebody makes a mistake on their turn. While Do-guti is the first game I've uncovered that relies entirely on blockading your opponent to win, this mechanic exists in a number of other medieval games. Non-symmetrical games such as Assalto and Fox and Geese require the attackers and geese, respectively, to trap their opponent so they can no longer move in order to win. And 9 men's Morris and Albuquerque allow for positioning your opponent in such a way that they can't move as a secondary victory condition. There's another game called Madelinette. that is essentially Do-guti with 2 extra points connected by a line and played with 3 pieces each instead of 2. This game was apparently developed in Europe and is an obvious evolution of the Asian game, made slightly more complex by the additional pieces and extra moves. I found a reference that said Madelinette was first cited in the work of Thomas Hyde, a 17th century historian. I've been unable to independently verify this, mostly because Hyde only published in Latin. Finally, there's a game played by the Maori in New Zealand called Mutaari. It's very similar in play to Do-guti, although there are 4 pieces per player and 9 total points, making it a much more strategically complex game. The game predates European contact with the island, and there's no solid historical evidence of contact between New Zealand and China or Korea before the 19th century, meaning that this was most likely a case of independent parallel development, not that one culture influenced the game of another. While Do-guti is an abstract strategy game, the actual strategy is severely limited. At most, you'll have the option of moving one of your 2 pieces into an empty space, but in many cases you'll only have 1 move available. There is only one winning position. If you maneuver your opponent into this configuration, both of their pieces and both of your pieces parallel to the gap in the square, you can make this move and blockade them into a losing position. So that means winning depends on one player making a mistake in movement. If both players are paying attention and planning 2 moves ahead, the game could last forever. And that's Do-guti. And also Pong Hau K'i, Ou-moul-ko-no, Sua Tok, Khlaa, and probably many other variations. If you made it this far, I hope you'll like and subscribe. I put out new videos every week on the rules, history, and strategy of an ancient game and how to build your own. Thanks for watching, and I'll catch you next time on The Gaming Bed.